My name is Monk Groh, and we are filming today at Hamilton College for the Hamilton College Jazz Archive. I'm absolutely thrilled to have Bill Watrous with me today, who I can personally testify is one hell of a trombone player.
Thank you, Monk.
Welcome. It's been a great pleasure doing some playing with you and having your name with the Jazz Festival tomorrow is a real plus. So, you're a son of a trombone player, I read.
Yeah, Ralph Watrous played with a lot of territory bands and regional bands, and he did vaudeville. He went to New York and played with the WMCA studio band for a while. Yeah, nothing too exciting, just...
Yeah. Did he, was it a full-time thing for him, or kind of...
At that time it was, yeah. It was basically all he had, you know, it's what he did, and it's what he wanted to do with his life, you know. And of course the Depression came around and it took him out. It took a lot of people out. And my dad would have been smart if he'd have stayed in it. But something happened. I think he met my mom, he got married, and realized he had to make a living. You know, and sort of stepped out of the business. And there were other little political factors that sort of dictated his disappearance, so to speak.
Seems like the entertainment didn't suffer during the Depression years as much as a lot of businesses.
That's the only thing that didn't suffer.
Yeah. And I'm curious, you mentioned territory bands. This is the East Coast. Well,
he was mainly functioning in Cincinnati at the time. Flat out all the way to the end, and then wrote an indicated slide and something else on something else, and you can go and find peanut butter and Bosco all over everything, right? Yeah. And you know, Bosco, when it dries, it has to be chiseled up. It's like black cement, you know.
Not the best thing for a smooth slide.
He was understanding about it. He never really gave me much attitude about it. And so I just simply developed on my own. I can't recall him taking any active part except to criticize. That was his role, was to be critical. Oh, your mouthpiece wasn't positioned properly, blah, blah, blah. You're using too much pressure, or this, that, and the other thing, little things. And I used to watch how he would keep the corners down when he played, which was, and how gracefully he moved the slide. There weren't any jerky movements at all when he played. So that sort of set.
Yeah, you know, I had this recollection that I was either in college or around then, and a bunch of my musician friends were watching the show that you were on. Can't recall what it was, but they had this very close-up thing. Like, we just were in awe. First of all, what you were playing, the range and so forth, but that it seemed so effortless and immovable, you know, no gyrations.
No, I've never allowed those to become a feature, focal point of my playing, because I learned early on that the fewer number of moving parts when it came to this business here was the most optimum as far as efficiency went.
Yeah.
And because I tried it a lot of different ways, and if you're really curious and spend a lot of time adjusting what you're doing, and are interested enough in it, you'll find the way to do it, you know, to get the best result. And that's basically what I went.
So at what point in your high school or whatever, growing up, did you decide to have a feeling that you could make a living as a musician?
I guess I was in my, between my junior and senior year, I would say. I got the chance to play. One thing my dad did right, there was a lot of kid bands, you know, that were made up in the high school. Policemen's Benevolent Social Dances and little quasi, you know, Dixieland bands that weren't very good. My father blocked me from playing with those, but he made inroads with some older, you know, in their 30s and 40s type players who had club date bands around the area. And he made sure he found a way. Actually, it worked out. Childish habits that a lot of young players have of not knowing the form of things, not knowing the proper way to function in an ensemble. That's a lost art.
Why is it a lost art these days? We got so many music schools now where you can go and learn this craft.
But we have all kinds of written music, don't we? We have a lot of big band stuff, and it's all written out. Phil Woods waxes poetic on this point. But there are very few schools which they take the time to teach the craft of playing in a small ensemble. Okay, say the size of the one that we recorded with today, or smaller. You know, very few teach responsibility of functioning in those ensembles. I have a little question and answer game that I play clinic group I work for. I say, okay, I got a question for you all. I have $100.
I don't know why, but I have the freaking
Does anyone here give me in 4 words
resistance at the 3rd position?
primary function?
Unless I'm just extra sensitive right now, like, and this has always been a thing. It's kind of annoying. I mean, like, either way, I shouldn't have said unless, but you know what I mean. Maybe this has been the way the whole time.
Play in times, that's good too. And to get a good sound is to protect the sound. That's the primary function in any ensemble. And the congas, for example, you'll hear everything in young high school congas, with few exceptions. Every so often, someone listening to Clifford Brown records, and have somebody come out and play Joy Spring, okay, and have an idea as to what goes. But most of them, hard out into the open air.
Man, that's
To
difficult.
try to find something that works, and they're still thinking like a big band instead of like a combo. And this is what happens.
Yeah, in high school they don't get much chance to do. How many instructors in high school
Have the time, Monk.
have the time?
That's part of the problem. Football field band, and possibly a jazz ensemble between all. That's all the time we have. See? And those Dick Benvenuti took the time to have music. And he taught us an awful lot of things, you know, about carefully. And we get in the theory class, we get to bring in different records of different people.
Entrance into the professional ranks. Is it New York City?
Actually, I started playing professionally up in Connecticut when I was in high school. That's really where I basically started. I started making, 25, maybe $50 on a weekend.
That was a lot of money.
Yeah, because there was a lot of jobs, a lot of dances and little club gigs. Dixieland, of course, was hitting the pretty heavy up there, and of course I was the only trombone player. Took me under their wing, and there it was.
Right?
Yeah. Of how an instrumentalist has to fill a certain role. For instance, the clarinet player plays the obligato to the trumpet player who's playing the melody. And the trombone player functions somewhere between the bass and another obligato. He sort of fills in that role. So your roles are pretty clearly
What about the straw hats and the suits and so forth? I see a lot of that in California with the Dixieland societies. Are they good players?
Some of them are. Yeah. There's different levels of bands. The Abalone Stompers, for instance, up in Carmel, were a really good band. Old Jake Stock ran that band. His son Jackson, I believe, runs it now. There's some great players, Fast Eddie Artson and Jackie Coon. It's some really great players, no question about it. Anybody who's heard Fast Eddie Artson play the banjo has to admit that that's a serious instrument. And Jackie Coon is one of the seven wonders of the world, and Buddy Jones up there, who used to play with Charlie Parker and play bass on the Jack Sterling show back there in the 50s. They've all got quite a background.
Billy Butterfield and Kay Winding, you got into that?
Butterfield came first. I was actually I had just gotten out of the Navy. But actually, no, they were sort of interspersed with each other. I I had to go down in the basement down there, and I looked up and called information, found out sure enough, Charlie Lennon lived in Dobbs Ferry, New York. So I called him, and lo and behold, got him on the phone. And I said, my name's Bill Waters, and I play the trombone, and I'd like to come and play for you sometime. He says, well, unfortunately, my ensemble is set right now, but of course, if you want to come to rehearsal this week, we can check you out. We'll be rehearsing Wednesday at Lynn Oliver Studios, says to me, right? So Wednesday came, and I just put my stuff in my old 1959 Ford convertible, which was ready for the boneyard by this time after being... And I started heading for Broadway. My car died at 87. So I got out there and huffed and puffed my way up to 89th Street, and as I'm going up the stairs, midnight. 4 times. I don't know. Super professional, right? But I went up there and finally they had these 4 trumpets. They sounded great. And he finally said, well, would you like to sit in and play something? Of course, yeah. I got my horn out. He said, well, what would you like to play? This is the preacher would be good because I heard they were recording in Columbia, and I had literally taken the parts off the album and played it down. And so we played this thing. I thought, okay, this is my one chance here, to do this thing. And I said, well, I've got to make it good. So I literally launched into a series of choruses as if my life had depended on it. And in fact, it did. And in fact, as I was finishing my last chorus on this, I saw Eddie Green, the trombone player who I replaced, actually packing his horn out, leaving. But he didn't know what was to come. Because after a couple of tunes, then they called out something that I hadn't seen. And they found out what a lousy sight reader I was at that time. I couldn't read at all. Nothing. Zip. Zilch. And they all had a discussion in the back room. They said, listen, this guy can't read a note. They said, what are we going to do with him? And Ross Tompkins, Russell George said, look, I don't care if he can read a note or not. He swings like crazy. And we can teach him to read, And sure enough, I got hired for the gig, and lo and behold, a bit at a time, I did learn to read music, as you've recently found out. And, that sort of led to it all.
Be darned.
I wound up playing lots at Dixieland in New York, in between gigs with Wendy. I was playing with these little bands that we'd play. I used to sub for Cuddy Cutshall at Nick's sometimes, and I would play with the Riviera Club. If I had nothing to do, I would just go out and play. Roswell Rudd and I used to spell each other between Riviera all the time we were there. And in those days, Roswell was some kind of player.
You must have gotten your reading together some if you're going to do studio.
Oh, yes.
work.
Oh, believe me. I did get it together. There was an awful lot of studio work that came up. There's lots of shows that I did first at the Copacabana and places like that where people came in. We just simply had to read, And then the studio work started because I did an album for this producer named Bob Thompson. And Richard Berkey was he was Bobby Darin's conductor. And I sort of lured him to New York. And Richard Berkey wrote an album of stuff. What happened was I played a solo on I'll Be Seeing You with behind this orchestra, behind the singer. And it was an absolute smash, really. It turned out really great. And these guys said, hey, let's, let Waters do a whole album. So they did. They did a whole bunch of nothing but strings, harp, rhythm section, and me. Called In Love Again was the name of it. I mean, the cover was embarrassing. Hair all slicked back in a blue suit, and baby face, and a trombone, and palm trees in the background. It was really,
You still have a copy of it?
Well, I have one. It's unplayable. It's got a beat now. But what they did was in hiring me, they also hired in the string section all of these contractors, that day forward, I mean,
Wow.
you know.
Must have had some endurance going on.
Oh yeah, I always correctly.
Uh,
I never, bruised my embouchure doing that. I could still be playing now on that stuff. I wasn't tired yesterday. My mind was going,
yeah.
but my chops were still there.
Right.
But that never became an issue. Other stuff became an issue. No, I can't say that. No, I functioned very well in New York. Had a nice apartment on West 72nd Street, with French doors and big formal dining room and all that stuff. And
I have a flat
wound up
with this
buying
guy.
a Mercedes and storing
Can
it
you
in the
bring him
garage
back
down
to
there
my
for trips
Facebook?
on the weekends, And my mom
Yeah,
lived
I'd like
in
to
Connecticut,
I'd
so
like him
on
back
the
to my
weekends, I didn't
Facebook.
have anything to drive up there. But there was a lot of work.
Right now,
A lot of
he
things,
disappeared.
Early on, I did
Some,
subs on the Ed Sullivan show, and then of course I
some,
played for Arthur
friend.
Godfrey show.
I don't know,
And
somebody
then there was
black.
a lot of things in
But
between, a lot of road trips
then
and gigs
sometime
with Woody Herman's band
I
for a
see
while.
that guy again. Then I confirm you
In between,
back
I
to me.
did some trips with Billy Butterfield.
But this
too,
guy,
which were interesting. He
but
was
now this guy,
fabulous trumpet player.
I
He
don't know
really
what's
was.
wrong.
He was as lyrical and
So I like him back to me.
pretty sounding as any trumpet player I'd ever heard, really.
Well, I don't know what happened. Did you ever see
I'm
the
gonna go
profile?
back to it.
Yeah.
No,
But after that,
Then he might
came
just
the
have it
Rose
set up.
Griffin show. In fact, I had to beg Woody to let me off. I actually played prior to that with Quincy Jones,
Normally, if they block you, you shouldn't be able to.
which was interesting.
Uh-huh.
Because Jerome was on it there.
Was that the band that did the European?
I talked to
That was
his wife
after the
last
European
night. He
tour.
said,
Quincy lost
maybe
a
I
on that tour. And
press
was absolutely
accidentally blocked him.
adamant
I
that
said,
he
I
was
don't
never
know.
going to have a big band again and do that, because he said he'd never lose that money again.
I did, right?
So,
See? That's why I told him last night.
but then the Ray Griffin show came around in the mid-60s. And
I don't know, 'cause when I first
Denny
blocked him,
Stiles,
I
the
was
late Denny
Maybe
Stiles, and myself,
Yeah,
and
then he said, I blocked him, but I don't know how can I block
Richie
him.
Kanuka, Roger Pemberton, and Dick Hafer, and Shelley Gold, or Shelley Russell, whatever he chose to be called at that time. And we had Jake Hanna on drums, Jim Hall on guitar, and Art Davis on bass, and of course Morton Lindsay on piano.
Oh yeah, I remember that name now.
And that went on for quite a few years, and during that time, a lot of things happened. I actually spent a week
I
with the
talked to
Basie
him
band
last
at one
night
point in the
with
off
his
season.
wife.
But summertime would come, and I would take off.
You wanna set up? Set up?
And I sort of discovered a place in the woods where I could sort of set up a fishing camp. And I did that every summer. I would take off from about June 20th. And I would take, that time, my daughter and my ex-wife now up to Maine, to this big house that we bought on the ocean front, which she still owns, and just take the entire summer off. And sometimes I wouldn't play at all the entire summer. I'd just fish every day, do nothing else. And then I'd come back at the end of the summer, and there'd be a pile of checks waiting for me at the union.
Oh, sure.
From jingles and stuff, and residuals
So
and stuff.
I'm not like
I'd get
recording
every
anything important, and we're not live right now.
$10,000 worth of checks
But this is
as if I
I'm
could work
streaming
it all.
this right now, so
You get paid to
I'm
go on
gonna-
vacation.
Those were great. Those were
Oh,
really relaxed
Drumstick.
days, although I
I
did
keep
worry
bringing
about the
them
time
here
I was
for
taking
some
off.
reason.
Because I would take, from June all the way to September.
Well, you forget maybe you're going to be out of the scene too long.
Well,
that
not
someone
just that, but I would maybe think maybe I won't be able to play again.
Yeah.
After a couple of years, finding out that it was very relatively easy to get back in the swing again. I didn't want to. I couldn't do that.
must have been some funny
Oh,
moments
but
with your band.
So many trumpets.
What's your birthday? What's your passport again?
guy who
I
fell off
I
the
forgot
stage.
Oh,
your
yeah, a guy came
birthday.
falling off the
07.
boom, was a boom operator, and he
10,
lost his
56.
balance
Okay.
and fell
Wait, no, you
down
keep
and
playing. No,
bounced
no,
his
no,
all the
fine,
way
whatever.
down,
Yeah.
hitting
You're
things, and
sounding
finally
good.
caught
I didn't mean
himself
to
on the
No,
ring.
but
Jake
yeah,
Nice
He
guy.
caught him, yeah, he nailed him. You know, the guy broke his leg in 3 places, and Jake was buzzed. Gee, and I caught him too. You know.
Wow.
Music.
The music, jazz music certainly was changing
all the time.
a lot
Yeah.
in those times.
Sure.
Did you
หมู่ป่าป่าแต่มัน
get
จบ
into
ไฮสคูล18 ปี
what was, I guess,
เดี๋ยว
called
นี้อายุมัน
Avant-garde.
63 ปี
Yeah, I
free,
did for a
free
while.
jazz
So
at
you know
all?
how-
I did.
how
Yeah.
old
For a
for
while.
this
Actually,
guitar?
what I got into
18
was
years
a
old when he
rock
finished
group
high school.
called
21.
Eclipse.
Ah,
And in this
21 years old or
group
something.
was Mike
you
Lawrence,
finished
a
high school
very, very
18, right?
talented
18,
trumpet
20,
player.
right?
Okay.
And Dean Pratt,
Right
who
now
was a
he's
trumpet player who really
63.
wanted to play drums, so we played
And
drums.
then guitar.
And this guy, Alan Govan,
Keys
Yeah.
he became
Yeah.
the lead alto player in my
Don't
big
sell
band
it.
after a
It
while.
Feels brand new.
Made
And
in
a
America.
bunch of us, and we
Right now, they
literally
made in Hong
wrote our
Kong, they
own
made in Mexico.
material.
No way, Daddy.
And,
Fender.
and the stuff we played was basically
know what's
the group
going
was
on
sort of
here.
like Frank
Whatever,
Zappa is what it
whatever.
was. I mean, you talk about out.
Because you
The solos were really,
have
I
the
mean,
option
we
of
took
walking,
them
which means
long.
that you didn't.
In fact, I played on Genya
Like-
Ravan
like
and
the-
10-wheel drive for a
The
while.
guy,
Prior to
lived in
this,
France.
and then I left her to do some
He
things
said,
with this group, and we tried
I
and
know
tried
why
and tried
you
to find a
brought
decent
me,
lead singer,
because,
and we never did
you know,
find
he
one
know my
until
brother.
we scored a
What
kid
if he
named
liked
Kim
you?
Kim
I don't
Milford,
know, nobody
who
brought
became the
nobody,
singer and
but
the
we
lead
just
actor
go
in
like
the
that.
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh,
So-
no kidding.
That's what he left us to go do.
Later
this.
on,
And then we were in the
I
lurch
see him again,
without
and
a
then
singer,
I
and nothing happened. The group just came.
confirm him
we were
back to me.
really taking everything out. I mean, I don't think any of us played a chord tone. in
Can
any
you
of the
ask him
solos
if
that
you
we
can
played.
double check
Wow.
if he
Once in a
blocked you
while, I will
on
go
Messenger?
way outside. I worked last
Sorry. Good luck.
last weekend. I was in Delaware Water Gap. I worked a couple of concerts with this high school band. Then I went up in the Delaware Water Gap and played with Irby's kid, Jesse, on piano,
Oh,
who's wonderful, you know, and a couple of good rhythm section players in this club, the Deerhead Inn. And as the night went on, we got progressively more involved until the last tune we played this Bud Powell tune called Hey.
Oh, my stomach hurts.
You know, it sounds like rhythming, you know, but it isn't. It's just, I got rhythm. But we burned the heck out of this thing. And I let Jesse play the first 5 or 6 choruses on this thing. And he really got into it. He and the rhythm section got into this thing. I said, okay, you want to go there? Okay, let's go there. And I mean, I just absolutely took it everywhere. When I got through playing, man, Jesse was looking at me like, big grin of approval, you know. Known for doing that. I basically prefer, you know, I was talking with Wendell Brunius, this fabulous trumpet
I don't know.
about that, you know, how we have both gone through and find that basically our most enjoyable is when we're right in the middle of the thing, you know. But I mean, you just have to forget everything. It's really what you
do
do.
you feel like bring it back in? Do you feel
I keep it in sight. So while I'm doing it, I keep it in sight all the time, you know,
Yeah.
because I feel if If you don't do that, then you're just BSing everybody. I really believe that. I think that if you're going to play outside, you better damn well know where the inside is while you're doing that. Keep it in mind and have at least idea as to where you're coming from. If you're going somewhere, you better there's no anchor anywhere. They don't want one. You know, type of players that just, you know.
Is it possible for you to just, even me, what do you think about when you improvise? Is it the chords that are behind you? Are you thinking about what you played 6 measures ago, where you're going with it? Is it possible to?
Frankly. And what I'm basically doing is I'm thinking as I'm going. And I'm listening to the textures that the rhythm section is putting down. I'm listening very carefully to the bass and the drums and the piano and trying to get a mattress to bounce on, so to speak. And if everything is plain, you know, understandable what's coming down, it's no difficult, no problem at all to just close my eyes and go and play, you know. It's the same with Wendell, you know, well, both of us played on one of those tunes that you had the other day when it was not clear who was going to play. And the changes weren't necessarily...
I was blown away by that.
Yeah. And both of us just closed our eyes. But if you play a little bit and then stop for a second and listen to the have this take those not getting into a panic, but just going where they suggest that you go. And if you listen, if you really honestly listen and have, you know, the ability to listen, of course, that has to be developed too. Ear training is one major part of this thing. If you can teach them to hear a tone and produce it on their instrument, and hear a series of tones and produce that. And if you equate what you hear with what's coming out of your instrument, it makes it a lot easier. Makes it a much simpler job, you know, than if you're just, you know, shooting in the dark. You know, you have to close your eyes. I tell a lot of young players, you know, don't have your nose dripping on the paper, man. Listen to what this thing is doing. Close your eyes and get into the capsule. And go. Your ear and your feelings sort of take you someplace if you can.
Well, you must not have taken Quincy Jones' own advice about having your own big band.
No,
I think
that last night.
no kidding.
Marianne was there. She was angry about the whole thing. And some player that I had borrowed from Frankie in my band did this thing. Just a weird. I can't imagine. My It's not like other big bands. I do like Thad and Mel did with the band. Every chart we have, it's like the ballads and things. They're my baby. You know, all of the ballad stuff that has to be played. That's what I do. Okay. But the stuff that's it's straight ahead down the middle and open. It's usually open for maybe 2 other soloists besides myself.
You seem to have had a pretty special relationship with Thad Jones. What a guy.
He was wonderful. I was devastated when he left New York, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, when I heard he was sick, I didn't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't taking any calls or anything. But I found out, Jerome Richardson told me what a special feeling Thad had for me. And I mean, he brought me to tears. Literally. He gave me a dressing down every so often, too, because I wasn't assuming my responsibility when I played on the band. Right. I was still, flirting off occasionally and trying to, partying and having a good time instead of taking responsibility.
Man, I forgot. I had something. I should start saying it when I freaking remember.
I wasn't accepting responsibility. Still scared.
It had something to do with my lip embouchure.
Trying to find a way to fit in because the band intimidated me, to tell you the truth. It really did,
This isn't it.
And that was a very professionally adept ensemble. I would have to say, in studios, that was the most adept ensemble I had ever played with. I mean, we had great players on there, and they were just taking no prisoners. The band was so clean and so right, and what Rosengarten would do, bless him, is we would go into rehearsal, and the first 45 minutes that we were there, he would pull stuff out of the library, we would just boil and get it out of our system. He would open it up and let guys play, let Eddie Daniels play, let me play, let Virgil Jones play a little bit, and it was a real learning experience, but it was a blowing experience. It actually it gave us a release. So I said, wow, what am I going to do? So then I started gathering. I went and got a lawyer and everything because they'd given me this contract. So I went around and I started gathering up whatever charts I could find at that time. And I got a couple of charts from a friend of mine that went to North Texas State, Sweet Georgia Brown Upside Down, and Zip City. So I had those two. And then I sat down and wrote a chart for myself called Fourth Floor Walk-Up, which I sat down and wrote. And I realized that we didn't have enough time, and I better write another one. So I wrote a thing called TEEJY. It's just a pretty little bossa nova. And I brought those to the date with me. We finally got into the session, and fortunately, I had a chart by Bill Berry on show. Frank Karowski brought in something he'd done for Doc Severinsen that Doc hated, called Dichotomy. Wayne Andre produced a chart called IO that Doc Severinsen also. Oh no, the one that Frank Karowski hated, Buddy Rich hated.
Sometimes the producers and so forth know what they're talking about.
Sometimes they know what they're talking about. I must say that it took me years to learn that lesson, and I've finally gotten over that hump. I now know what the people really want to hear. You know? That's why I'm singing now. I'm into this Chet Baker project, and I'm trying to gather some investors to help me come up with $27,000 so I can go in and do this tribute to Chet Baker where I will sing all of his tunes. Jerome was kidding me about it the other day. But I'm dead serious about it. I can do it. I know I can do it. And I'll play on them and do all of this stuff.
Best of luck with that.
You're gonna need it. You know? But it'll be easy. I don't even look upon it as a challenge. It'll be like falling off a rock. because I've been singing for years. I just haven't really, pushed it. Sue Rainey pushed me into it. She said, she got me to sing with her on a gig. She said, why aren't you doing this? You're wonderful. Do it. And I took that. I said, okay, so if people throw tomatoes at me, I'm going to blame you. Okay? She laughed, but she's one of the greatest things since sliced bread, that chick. You heard her?
No.
Oh,
I've seen her name around quite a
she's
bit.
so good. And so nice. And she's one of the rarities in our business.
Yeah.
An unspoiled female.
Yeah.
Really.
Singers can be a whole trip.
A piece of work.
Talk about insecurity.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
That's why they used to make them ride in the back of the bus.
Hope the fumes get to them.
Oh, that's what, no, they try to, humility in those days. They don't have it anymore. There's no humility.
Yeah.
See, they run the show now, and we ride in the back of the
I
bus.
see. Okay. Well, listen, what took you from one coast to the other?
I met a girl that I loved, and still do, Marianne. In fact, she's the person that sent the mailer out to you.
Yeah.
She's 17 years younger than me, and she's very pretty, and very cute, and very tiny, and still looks the same way she did when I met her back in 1976. I first met her, and she hasn't changed. That's weird, but she really hasn't. She's got the same shape she had back then, and same cute little face and blue eyes and pointed nose, and
Oh, okay, I remember her now.
everything's intact.
Well, she obviously helps you run your business.
She does. If she worked harder at it, I'd be even busier. She does it and it sort of gets out of the way. But she's got her hands full with my son Jason.
Yes.
Who's 15 going on 40.
Or 15 going on 11.
Oh yeah, that
What
too.
name?
Yeah, that's more like he's very immature. This kid. But he's so big and strong that if he ever really finds how great he is at baseball, he will start taking it very seriously. Because we've started to show him that there's a lot of money in this, and he's starting to see money excites him.
Yeah.
And that's a kind of a dumb way to get someone involved. I never got into music for the money. I never thought about it. To me, it was always for the glory, honest to God, for the glory of playing music. That's where it all began. To me, that was a very honorable thing and a fabulously exciting thing to do, to get up with a great band and play. I thought that everybody liked and admired that situation.
There was enough guys around who felt that way, I guess,
To make it, make you want to go there.
Was the West Coast music scene totally different?
We're different, but you see, New York was already in a state of flux at that point. It was, studios were closing down left and right in favor of synthesizers. And everything was moving towards motion pictures and TV. And Patrick Williams had called me up and said, look, because I was looking for an excuse to go out there because I had just met Marianne. I took a tour, and I played Dante's out there in Los Angeles, and I met this gorgeous creature, and I threw away my black book. I said, this is it. I got it. Affirmative response from him, that was all the excuse I needed to go out, because I immediately went out there and I started working for Marion Klein, the Kleins, and I started doing all of Pat's shows, and Tony Charlie's Angels. Nature paid off.
It's the 90s. It's the state of jazz.
State of jazz is always going to be, see, the beauty of jazz, jazz will always be the state of jazz is
Okay, here's a hard question. TV shows or whatever, some of the most ridiculous things you've seen on stage or in the band. What was involved you ever saw, and I went and did this thing for Chuck Berry. Well, Chuck spit out his orange that he was eating. He said, "You've got to do this." So they rented me a California State Highway Patrolman's uniform, and they gave me a name, Frederick Fumducker, Officer Freddie Fumducker, honest to God, and they put me on this show. What happened was at rehearsal, Joe Howard, the trombone player on the show, didn't know me when I came out. And he got laughing so hard that I couldn't do my bit. Oh, no.
And I finally, after rehearsal, I went over to Joe and said, "Joe, it's me. What? You got to fun at me." He says, "Whatever you do, don't do that on the show. If you could take a tranquilizer or something, do it. Because I want to get through this thing, right?" So I went out there, and the show was done in scenic downtown Burbank. And it's the home of all of the right-wing extremist groups. And they took offense because they put an American flag on either side of me when I went out in my highway patrol uniform and started this thing. And they started hooting and hollering, and of course J.P. depends on, during this season, it's every weekend away. Okay. I've been out now, I've had exactly 6 days at home in the month of March already. In the month of February, it wasn't much better. Really cuts into my fishing time.
Yeah. Everyone's got to make sacrifices.
Yeah.
It still takes the time off during the summer.
Yeah, it's forced because my business slows down dreadfully. I mean, that hurts too. Because we have to cut down on expenses during the summer, so I've got nothing to fall back on.
Because it's pretty school-oriented work then.
Very much.
Yeah. I mean, if you, how far are you? You're around LA, where you live? Is it on the outskirts? Or?
Yeah, we're up in the hills outside, around the corner from Burbank.
Well,
Shadow Hills.
If you want to play a jazz gig, right?
Oh, you make $100 a night. Yeah, that's about all it comes to. So I do a little of that. I don't do a lot. I play it occasionally.
Yeah.
Just to keep my hand in the fire.
Right. Do you ever think of writing books about trombone playing?
I wrote one called Trombonisms. It's out and available on Carl Fisher. I've thought of doing some more stuff. I'm toying with the idea. Bashing a few things around.
Yeah. How about taking a big band to Europe?
Over my dead body.
Yeah.
Somebody comes up with the right amount of money, I guarantee I could do that. I almost got to take the band to Japan last year, but it fell through because the economy went. I subbed for Cuddy Catchall. So I subbed for.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But I knew Lou, and Lou was a wonderful trombone player. Rick Dickinson was one of my Carl Fontana, frankly.
I don't usually ask this question, but if you try to be real honest about where you fit in the thank you. Where do you put yourself?
I will relate to you by people like Wayne Andre and others. You know, I'm sort of a, if we look down the list of modern trombone players, we got, let's start, for instance, with JJ, for instance. There's JJ and Curtis Fuller and Slide Hampton, okay, which are icons amongst themselves. And then Jimmy Cleveland sort of falls in the slot there. And then we look at Frankie Rossellino and Irby and Carl. And I sort of fall in there sort of after those guys somewhere. You know, I'm sort of a, I would say, people consider me a kind of a cross between Irby and Fontana somehow. I mean, I've heard this is what try but that's the in that slot somewhere.
What the mess?
Irby and Rossellino under any circumstances, or JJ either. They just aren't. Matched. For advancement things. When you go to a session, it's not like it used to be anymore. It's a whole different orchestral works undertaking. I mean, the book is this thick, tiny, small print, which at the age of 60, without assistance, I'm lucky that way,
Wow. Great story out there.
Oh, it's incredible. The stuff that's in here, you realize, when you read all of the other accounts of Mozart's life, he wasn't all in that poverty area. He was treated like a nobleman when he traveled all over Europe. I mean, he was, of course, attached to the Archbishop in Salzburg's court, but he was given leave with his father, to travel all over to all of the cities of Europe and made, really copious sums of money for his tremendous feats of music. I mean, the guy was writing masses and symphonies at the age of 9. X-rated stuff in some of his letters to
I hope you can say that tomorrow after dealing with the...
I do that all the time. They need to be dealt with. They need to be talked to and helped out.